my beautiful plant people, how are we today? For those of you that have never met me before, I'm Sam, the proud founder and CEO of Plant Collector Melbourne, and today we are going to be talking about some crazy plant prices. We are going to go back in time to 2020, 2021 during the pandemic of when plant prices were crazy. We are going to be looking at beautiful aroids, rare tropical plants that were insanely expensive back in the day and now comparing it to today. And let me tell you, it is going to shock you just how much these plant prices have changed and fluctuate over the years. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before I get started, let's do a little bit of a disclaimer. These are talking about plant prices that were in Australia. So all of them are going to be in AUD, Australian dollar. And I guess what I'm trying to achieve here is just showing you guys the journey of how trending or really popular plants can actually just completely change over time in terms of price, and the fact that people want them really badly at first and then it will fluctuate and somehow plants prices can change. And in these particular plants, the drop was astronomical that it is just so worth mentioning and telling you guys. So we've got a few Anthurium, Philodendron, and of course Monstera for today. So we are going to be going and ascending up in prices. The interesting thing is that we're really looking at 2020 as well as 2021. I started my plant journey in 2018 when plant prices, I would say for aroids, was on the incline. Before 2018, not that I was around, but after talking to a lot of individuals that have been in the hobby or collecting plants for a long period of time, said that there was a really long stint of aroids just not being trendy or cool, or plants in general. So there was quite a slump, and in terms of prices, everything was quite low. And then it started to increase, and I guess that I popped into the scene when things were really trendy. Back in the day, it was definitely more Facebook that we were on rather than, let's say, like eBay, or there wasn't that many like rare plant businesses and websites. So for me personally, when it was back in 2020, or I would even say back in 2019, 2020, 2021, a lot of that was actually doing plant shopping on Facebook. And for those of you that are in the plant community here in Australia, you guys would know that there was bidding wars. There was like all this excitement when it came to Facebook that is, I guess, it's not that it's not there anymore, because definitely people still sell plants on Facebook, but there are different avenues such as Instagram or different websites. I think less people are actually on Facebook, but given there is still a beautiful variety on Facebook. So let's get started with our first plant, shall we? Let's start off with one that is so outrageous, and I'm going to put all of these like screenshots and screen grabs just so that you guys can see on Facebook what was going on and showing you the years and how much plants were going for. So this one absolutely blows my mind. It is none other than the Variegated Monstera Adansonii. And this to me, back in the day, I would say it was back in 2020, I was dying to get this plant. I remember seeing it for the first time in 2019 and being like, oh my gosh, that thing exists. It is so beautiful. It's a variegated monstera, but a different form. It's like holy, it is blocky. And back then, I don't think that the Indonesian minty model form was really known back then, but it was definitely the creamy or white blocky variegated monsteras that were all the hype. And when it came onto the scene, oh my goodness, did everyone want it. So, as you can see here, this was back in December of 2020. This individual did a bidding war starting at $3,000. Say what? And surprisingly, if we went into the comments, which of course your girl did, and to see how much it actually sold for, can you guys guess how much it sold for? The individual that ended up winning this bid $4,800. And so rounding up, of course, 5,000 Australian dollars. And it is wild to me that now if we compare it, like we get them in the store, we sell it for about $80 to $90 for that size, but the variegation on this particular one is nothing spectacular. And so it's crazy, and it will continuously be the theme throughout this video, is that the prices have plummeted, my friends, from going to like $5,000 to $90. And just to be clear, the date of which this video is being recorded is, what are we? We are in July of 2024. So that is 4 years later, and it is insane to me how much these have dropped. But actually, is it? Actually, no. You know what? I think that when new plants come to the scene, they can be insanely astronomical if they've gotten the hype from overseas. And then when it finally lands here, like lots of people are willing to pay a really big penny for them. But then as time goes on, if this plant is really easy to propagate, then it will decline in its value over time. And particularly if people no longer want the plant. Interestingly enough, I think Variegated Monstera and ilsemanii are not like super common, but a lot of nurseries have them. They have been TC'd. They're really not super easy accessible, but easier. And it is just wild to me of this kind of plummet. We've also got another screenshot of another one that is roughly around the same. The variegation is, in my opinion, not even that great. And again, we are around the $5,000 mark, and this one went for $5,146, which is just outrageous, particularly looking backwards and retrospectively. So this plant, this one is so close to my heart because I actually bought this plant back in that time, and let me tell you, it was a pricey penny. Do I regret it? No. But have the prices plummeted? Yes. So this one is none other than Anthurium rotolantii, or rotolanteanum. And this plant is like my favorite corrugated plant because it is just so stinking easy to look after compared to all of their counterparts that are super corrugated. So as you can see in this screen grab or screenshot, it is $5,500. And let me tell you that during that time, that was a stinking bargain. And it was because that during 2020, there was one particular grower that was selling multiple of them. And when I say multiple of them, they were huge, like lots of different leaves, really gorgeous, healthy plants. I know that there a couple of people from Melbourne actually got them from the same grower. And yeah, it was at this price point. To this day, I don't think that Anthurium corrugatum is easily accessible. I still think that it is quite the rare plant. But in saying that, I think that the want or the demand is just not there for the plant. I should also put another disclaimer in that this time stamp or this like capture of these plants and prices was during COVID. And so during these times, plant prices were just astronomical because in Australia, I would say that the biggest driver of it is that a lot of individuals were at home. There was a lot of people coming into the hobby that were new, and also the government was putting out like help and money for individuals that were struggling through COVID. So a lot of people, surprisingly during COVID, had a lot of money to spend. And so when I talk about these prices, it is definitely one of the factors that you have to consider, is that these prices are astronomical because it was during a time where people had a lot more money to play around with. I would even go and dare say that they had free money to play with. And your girl was one of them, so that is why I ended up getting a rotolanteum. It, again, To this day, there is still no regret in getting that thing because it is still one of my most favorite plants. But in saying that, you can get a rotolanteanum, like a small bubbly plant, for like $200-300. It just goes to show, with some time and over time, that plant prices do end up plummeting, particularly for the plants that people aren't really gravitating towards, which is outrageous to me because I think that the rotolanteanum is just perfection. But anyway, moving on to our next plant. Now, my friends, we are getting to the point where plant prices were as much as a car. And when I say that, we're talking like close to $10,000. These were insane times, and in saying that, there is no judgment because your girl was definitely spending her pretty penny during COVID, and that if there is a demand for a plant, the market dictates the price. So I hope that you guys are also on the same page as me, is that we are just taking facts from the past and how much plants were during that time. This one is crazy. So this one, my friends, was Philodendron whipple way. And I totally get why it was so expensive back then, because it was rare. It was so hard to find. I remember putting it on my wish list and being like, no one has it. And for me, this plant was incredibly beautiful because of the color, the way that the new leaves would fold out. It would have mottled white, cream, green, orange, red, like just an amazing amount of color to this plant, which I don't actually think a lot of plants do. And so back then it was around the 10 mark. As you can see from my screenshot, there was one selling for $9,000, and of course it sold. That was actually only 2 years ago. So this one is back in 2022, and my, have the times changed. You can see in the next one, which is a significantly smaller plant, but of course the variegation and the color are chef's kiss. And this one went for $2,200. And it is wild to me that to this day, you can get a Philodendron whipple way for like $200. Like, it's just one of those things. Like I said, these things sold at that price back then. And now, I don't know why people don't like Philodendron whipple way. Like, I don't feel like it gets enough rap for how beautiful of a plant that it is. Moving on up, we have our Philodendron ilsemanii. And this one also holds a very dear place in my heart because I definitely bought one back in the day, and it was two incredibly teeny tiny ones from a particular grower in Melbourne, and I was just so psyched. I managed to get a couple of pups, but for those of you that have Philodendron ilsemanii, you guys would know that colder weather is better for these plants, and they actually prefer being in outside or in really bright light, but definitely not hot. And so I managed to cook both of mine, which was super sad, but also just one of those things where it's a lesson learned. So we have 3 screenshots here just to give you guys and reiterate how much these plants were going for back in the day. And so here we have a screenshot from 2022, which again, not so long ago. And this plant, it wasn't even that big, but it went for $5,800. And you guessed it, it sold. Moving along to the next screenshot. Here we have a Philodendron ilsemanii cutting. And the variegation for this guy was nothing outrageous. It was definitely more on the medium term of variegation. It wasn't low variegation, but it wasn't high variegation. And this one went for $6,800, given that it is a lot bigger leaves, but it was a cutting, my friends. That one is always so surprising, is that when they sell for that price and it's a cutting, I'm like, that is stressful. And the last, but certainly not least, of our Philodendron ilsemanii screenshots is this beautiful specimen that was going to sell for $7,000. And to me, looking at it, and especially back in the day, I just thought that this ilsemanii was gorgeous. The variegation was lovely, but mostly it was because of the size that I thought that was very fair. Interestingly enough, I think it didn't get sold at 7,000, but it went to bidding instead. It ended up selling for an absolute bargain of like $3,000. Yeah, that was an absolute steal. But I also think that given it was in a certain location, that it had to be picked up and it couldn't be shipped, so it was actually like a smaller pool of people actually bidding. But yeah, whoever got that one, absolute bargain. Now this one, oh my goodness. This guy back in 2020 absolutely broke the internet. And the reason why I don't actually have the actual screenshot or what actually went down is because it was actually a eBay sale or bid, but there was luckily an individual that took a screenshot and put it up on Facebook. So I fully remember this auction, that everyone had their eye on it to see where it landed. And it is none other than Monstera obliqua, Peru. And it's so funny because we get these plants in the store and I'm pretty sure I can go get it. Let me go grab it. Oh, here she is. It is wild. It is wild that she's here. I'll just put you there. But this plant back in 2020, I remember watching, and I think that it went for around the $10,000 mark. But if you guys fully remember the facts, and if you guys recall how much it actually went for, please do put it down below, because I'm quite interested, if my memory serves me right, that it was around the 10K mark. But I remember thinking like people grabbing their popcorn and watching that eBay bid go down, and it was just so wild. I definitely wanted that plant back in the day, but not with that price point. But there was a lot of people that were willing to pay that. So funnily enough, this Monstera obliqua Peru is $80 in the store. And can you imagine that? It used to go for about 10K. That is a car. That is a car. That is like part of a home deposit. That is a beautiful piece of furniture. Like, it is wild to me that these were the prices. These were the prices back in the day. Oh, my friends, we have come to the very last plant. And this one, to this day, still shakes me. I cannot believe how much these were and how much they are now. And again, we do have them in the store and we do sell them for an absolute fraction of what it used to go for. It is none other than Anthurium luxurians. And as you can see from this screenshot, this was back in 2020, 4 years ago, and this plant broke us. Like, I remember as a collector, it was my #1 plant. I was like, it is dark, it is corrugated, it is so beautiful, and so many people had it on their radar. I remember also grabbing some popcorn and being like, I wonder how this is gonna go down. I think that was the fun part of like Facebook and eBay, is that you guys got to like be a part of the community. You get to see all these different individuals, what they were bidding for, and that you would see some similar names pop up again and again. It was just a really fascinating time compared to what it is now. But in saying that, I'm going to go grab our small little bubba that we sell at the store. I'm gonna get multiple of them just so that you guys can see. Here is our little bubbies that we have for the store. They are stinking beautiful, beautiful. And so, my friends, I haven't shown you in the comments how much it went for, but could you take a guess of how much these beautiful plants went for? Back in the day, it sold around the 10.7K mark, but that doesn't mean that individuals were willing to go higher. So back in the day, when you used to bid on Facebook, I remember putting like alarms on my phone. I remember like getting the global time so that you could see like in seconds and milliseconds of when it would exactly hit the time of the bidding closing, and you would try to do it like the last second, like the very last second. And so sometimes people would be late, sometimes people would jump the gun. It's just like eBay. But I remember my heart racing every time I had to do some bidding. And I'm sure that these people were, if not more than what I was back in the day, because they were playing with a lot more money back then. And as you can see, about 4 years ago, an individual even did about 12.4, trying to buy this plant for 12.4. Given the size of this plant was absolutely gorgeous, the new leaves were emerging, they came out a beautiful color. These photos that were taken were just chef's kiss. And yeah, isn't that incredible? As in, it was like 10 to 12K. You could literally do so much with that money. But I am really glad that people found value and joy out of plants back in the day. And even to this day, we might be buying plants for like a fraction of the price, but the sentiment is still very much the same, where we want these beautiful living things in our lives that we get to care for, that we get to grow with. So I completely understand the sentiment. Alrighty, my friends, that pretty much wraps up this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed going down memory lane, taking a look at all of these crazy expensive plants. And to be fair, to this day, we actually do still have some rare tropical plants in the aroid realm that are this expensive. There sometimes are plants that come new to the scene that have never been seen before, and that's why they hold such a high price point, because there are just not many of them in Australia. And so maybe I'll do more segments or more series of this retrospectively of like any of the plants that are crazy prices now, because who knows what the community or the hobbyists or the collectors, we are actually the individuals that dictate plant pricing, because it is all about demand. It is all about what plants that we love and that are trending, and that what we find there is a value to. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to let us know down in the comments, because I am more than happy to do these videos oh so often. It's been really fun to be able to like capture a time back in 2020, 2021, 2022 of the Australian market for plants. So I hope that it's been really insightful and interesting. If you have enjoyed this video, I'll make sure to link another video up above that you continue watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!